This story of infidelity belongs to a man who had a brief affair with his mother-in-law he would never have imagined his wife's reaction when she found out about his tremendous slip-up. Let's begin with the story. I'm 38 years old and I live in a small town in the coffee axis of Colombia. I have been married for a few years and have a little daughter named Michaela. One day, my wife Vonia fell seriously ill. She was hospitalized and was left taking care of our 3-year-old daughter. My job in the field is very demanding and keeps me occupied from Monday to Saturday with no other option. I had to ask my mother-in-law to stay with Michaela. I didn't mind if my mother-in-law wanted to take Michaela to her house or if she preferred to come to ours, but I needed her urgent support. My mother-in-law agreed to come to our house. I would come home very late from work, play with Michaela, and then have conversations with my mother-in-law. She is a very noble and traditional woman. She gave birth to my wife Vania when she was only 18 years old, and now she was well preserved in her early 40s. Her character is calm and friendly. We noticed that the age difference between me and her was not very significant, as my wife is much younger than me. Because of this, there was no friction between us. On the contrary, we got along very well. My mother-in-law took care of Michaela, cooked and cleaned the house. Our routine was like that, and I tried to come home from work as early as possible. I played with my daughter and involved my mother-in-law in the game. My daughter loved to ride on me as if I were a horse, and she greatly enjoyed chasing her grandmother around the living room. After the game, it was time for the bath, and Michaela would usually create a commotion in the tub. My mother-in-law and I would stand there, watching as Michaela played with her toy boat, splashing water everywhere. Unintentionally, I noticed how the wet dress perfectly outlined the figure of my mother-in-law, confirming the idea that she was in very good shape. My mother-in-law's physique is similar to Vona's, just slightly plumper, but those extra pounds gave her a special charm as a mature woman. Their faces are also similar at times. They look like two sisters despite the nearly 20-year age difference between them. And well, yes, I admit it, my mother-in-law's figure awakened impure thoughts in my mind, especially because I hadn't been intimate with a woman for quite some time. In the midst of the chaos created by Michaela, my mother-in-law skillfully pulled her out of the bathtub and prepared to put her to bed. Additionally, she also needed to change since she ended up soaked after Michaela fell asleep. My mother-in-law and I sat in the kitchen and opened a bottle of wine. We savored that wine while having a conversation about life. Then we moved on to discuss family matters. My mother-in-law told me that she felt very happy because her daughter had a wonderful husband, namely me, a romantic, affectionate, attentive, and protective man. I knew that Vonia and her mother had no secrets between them, so my mother-in-law knew our life as a couple quite well. My mother-in-law said, "How lucky you are, Vonia, to have a good husband who carries you to bed in his arms and kisses you all over." My mother-in-law had only seen the kind of man in movies, never in real life. She had lived her whole life with an alcoholic who never said a loving word to her. Quite the opposite, he only yelled at her and mistreated her. The man would come home drunk and go straight to bed. If he felt like it, he would force himself on her with the terrible smell of cheap liquor. There were no kisses or affectionate words. 2 years ago, cirrhosis took the unfortunate man to the other world. As she told me her story, tears started to fall down her cheeks and her lips curved, showing deep sadness. I wiped away her tears with my hands and encouraged her to continue the narrative. I observed her and thought that she was a woman who, although always wore a smile on the outside, was very unhappy on the inside. I approached her and tried to comfort her, telling her that things would get better and that everything would be all right. I embraced her and caressed her face. Her eyes were teary, and in a highly emotional moment, "Wash gently," I whispered. Her lips responded to my kiss hesitantly, but a moment later we were both standing in the kitchen, locked in a very passionate kiss. Then I carried my mother-in-law in my arms to take her to my room. After laying her on the bed, she brought her face close to mine and whispered in my ear, "Turn off the light. I don't want you to see me like this, fat And ugly, I replied, don't say that, your figure is still beautiful, you have no reason to be ashamed. Everything flowed naturally and we made love for 30 minutes. Afterward we stayed embraced, feeling so good that we didn't want to get out of bed. In the middle of the night Michaela woke up and started crying. We both jumped out of bed and went to her room. My mother-in-law leaned over the crib. Appreciate my wife even more and has strengthened our trust as a couple. One day I suggested to my wife to have a threesome, but she said she is no longer capable of going to such extremes. Well, maybe I'll revisit that idea later. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. You can also go to the comment section and share your opinion about this story of infidelity. See you in the next story.